Well, to me, it was a story that was important for where we are right now in the world, with all the recession going on in the world, and the fact that big companies are firing and doing a lot with less people. It's a movie about someone who's self-motivated, who had an idea, a dream in his garage, and that dream that started in a tiny garage ended up being and turning into the biggest company in the world. And I think it was a really inspirational story that said more than even the story about Steve Jobs. It had a message for this period in time.
Was he a visionary, crazy person, a wonderful human being, or everything?
I think he was a visionary for sure, and I think he was somebody who showed love by the products that he created. And I think that was hard for people to understand, but he really believed and loved the things he created, and he wanted to make people's lives better. I mean, he wanted to make it easier to communicate, and it wanted to make it more perfect to create, a document or desktop publishing. This was all things that were important to him. He thought that people needed computers like an appliance, which in a time when computers existed in mainframes and personal computers were being thought about. There was a lot of them, but nobody had broken through. He thought you should have a computer beside your phone, beside your TV. It should be part of your life, not just something in your office.
And I saw the film last night. To me, it felt like a thriller. I mean, it really kept me wondering, because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
How did you accomplish that thriller-esque?
Well, I love that. I love that you say that. Gracias, because I think that's a very you recognize that. I had to take the business parks of the '80s. These big buildings were not very sexy, not very pretty. And I looked at it like it was a thriller, in the sense of the thriller it being the life of this man, because this was a man who got into a corporation that was the All Boys Corporation from the 50s, 60s, and even the 70s. And he was this sort of smelly hippie, young guy in his 20s, and they all wanted him out because he had a vision, but his vision was expensive. So they looked at ways to try to undermine him, and they took him off of this project, and then they looked at his expenses, and they were getting too high, and they realized they had to get rid of him, and then his best friends were turning on him and leaving him and abandoning him. Eventually they fired him from the company that he created in the garage, and he took 10 years out there in limbo and just thought about how can he get back, and he comes back and he gets his company back. So to me, it's ultimately a redemption story too. So it had all those elements, and so as a filmmaker, I tried to emphasize that.
How important was it for you to have Ashton as Mr. Jobs?
I mean, when I met Ashton, it was so obvious that he knew so much about this world and all about technology. And I'm so glad he has this platform to finally talk about the things he's passionate about. Because when you hear him talk and you see much he looks like him, and he's such an amazing actor, that for me, I knew that this had to be played by somebody for who the role would be important to get it right. And it was so vital for him when I met him, and I knew that this would be something special. And it was electric. I mean, this actor in this role, there's something curious about it. I just drove away thinking it needs to be this. It was as Steve Jobs said about his technology when asked whether it was right or wrong. He used to always say, "Well, it was obvious." And for me, Ashton was obvious.